Rene Rodriguez.
Here.
Cesar Nevares is absent. Ralph Duran.
Here.
Mayor Elia Garcia.
Here.
Victor Perez.
Here.
And Ivan Colom Villalobos.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Do we have any speakers?
No speakers, Mayor.
Item number 5, workshop and discussion and action on approving capital improvement items for the capital program.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Good morning.
Okay, so you have a spreadsheet in front of you. I apologize, the comments weren't updated, but this spreadsheet is gonna tell you how much we spent up to date and how much money we have available, and what projects we have funding allocated for this coming year. And if you notice on the second page, our COs 2014 was $9.9 million. We have actually spent up to date 8.4. Plan to spend 1.6. So the grand total is about $10 million, meaning we're in the negative of $129,000 that we would probably use the general fund to fund these projects. In the second row where it says plan year 5 to spend is what we're already have projects that we're spending on. One of them is the completion of the Veterans Park, which is $57,000. Then we have the purchase of Cougar Park of $389,000. And then we have our Rio Vista, the design phase, the $329,000, and then our library, which is $600,000. Plus, we have street overlays, the $250,000, and that's for our Buford that we had allocated in the past that we just haven't gotten done, and that will get done within the next 2 weeks when they go on break. Okay,
Which one was that again?
the street overlay,
Yeah.
and that's our $1.6 million. And then we're out of money. Mr. Charlie will talk to you about options of funding other projects, or, you know, what options we have as a city. And of course, there's an item on the agenda on Monday to go to San Antonio with Will Hurt for NatBank, so we can apply for these type of funding at a very low interest rate. Do you all have any questions before I pass it to Mr. Casiano?
Well, I would like
Mr. Rodriguez?
to say that, you know, first of all, we've done a lot of projects. That's a good thing. Nobody can say that we haven't. The bad thing is that, you know, when we need to continue doing projects, we're gonna have to look at different funding sources. And, but basically, that's what we wanna do. I mean, we can't continue to program projects and then start adding, and that's what happened, is that we programmed projects, but then we bring other agenda items and add out to these, and that's why we can't fulfill the ones that we've already had programmed. That's one of the things that we need to address as well, because I've done it too, so I'm saying we. So that's something that we need to really think about when we finalize the budget and see what kind of projects we want to move forward with.
Mr. Perez?
This doesn't include the infrastructure, like the technology infrastructure and stuff like that for the city, correct?
No.
Okay. I just want, because I know that sometimes that's what, even though it's not here, but another budget items, that's what also has
Correct,
kind of-
and the way it was set up way back in the day, it pretty much goes to your general fund.
Okay.
So there's no funds. I mean, we can, run reports, and I know Mr. Casiano has run reports on how much that has generated, but that's really what we account for at in the general fund when we do budget.
Okay.
That money is allocated there.
Because that's like, that's where, for example, that catches us off guard sometimes is, something breaks down here, something breaks down there, and so, and unfortunately, it is what it is. It's expensive, and so I think that's one of the things that, and maybe we can talk about it later on in another.
The budget,
another
the
session.
budget workshop, we'll talk
Yeah.
a little bit about.
Yeah. Okay.
For capital, I do ask council to consider, vehicles. Our vehicles are getting, especially the PD vehicles. So if we're not planning on going out for funding, if we start allocating at budget time a certain amount that we can kind of carry over and have that cushion in order for us to be purchasing vehicles, 2, 3 every fiscal year.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yeah, that's something that El Paso's having to deal with because they've not adequately put in new vehicles. That, remember, most of us that really do our oil changes every 3,000 miles, some of us hit 3,000 miles in a month. Imagine PD. So, they go through a lot, and maintenance is a lot, but, a vehicle can only go so far. Those are things that we can budget for that. We can allocate funding for that as well. Those are things that we just need to really say, hey, we're gonna have to allocate some funds for even, rainy day fund, just to have some money set aside. But, that's something that we'll address, should address.
Okay. And I'll
the show
give the
begins.
floor to Mr. Charlie.
May I approach the bench?
Yes.
Sure. Gracias.
This is the blah, blah, blah. And then
He
we'll have
didn't give us
numbers.
a blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So we can have it. 20 minutes. Blah, 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 blah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
On the sheet that says debt considerations, it starts off with a little discussion. In fact, I just, in all full disclosure, I plagiarized this from our consultant, Tom Lawrence, who responded to my request for some ideas about alternative funding, and this is how he responded. I did, like, the SIB is something an acronym that we use a lot in this debt considerations, and it stands for State Infrastructure Bank, and it's a specialized bank set aside to help fund projects that qualify, of course, where you're going to pay back any loans through your tax increment financing, which starts with a TRZ, which is a transportation, help me with that. Reinvestment zone. Basically, you're going to take, as development occurs in that area, the increase in the value, just the increase, not the original amount, but the increase in the value goes to a certain fund, actually the general fund, and it's used to pay off that debt as you incur it to finance certain structures, and basically it's roads. And we had a lovely meeting with a consultant with Texas A&M, who's working with TxDOT, and to do that Tigua arterial. This is probably something that we need to seriously consider, setting up a TRZ in that area and using that instrument, that State Infrastructure Bank, to finance that. But that's not what we're here for. I'm just sharing that beautiful information with you. So the other items that he put down there, other financing options at the local level, include the following: general obligation bonds, bonds which require voter approval. And that's kind of the big hitch there, is can we get that done? The other one is the certificate of obligations, which we've used before. And based on the criteria that he gave us there, it's probably our best bet still. The third item there, it talks about tax notes, and it sounded good until the end. It says the maximum maturity is 7 years. And that would put a hitch into our debt service. It would probably overwhelm us if we had to pay it off in 7 years. We're talking probably close to about $1 million a year to service that debt. And that would almost double. Well, we pay $1.8 million now to service our debt per year. That would add $1 million to that. And that would probably take a little bit too much money out of our M&O funds for us to continue using that method. And then finally was the time warrants, which it may be something that we look at, but again, at the end, the problem is we're going to have to pay a higher interest rate. And so based on those criteria, probably the COs is our best bet. And because of that, I did the property value consideration, then we're to the numbers part. And just quickly kind of a review is the current rates, what we're looking at right now, between the M&O funds and the IS or debt service funds. IS stands for interest and sinking, which is an old kind of verbiage for debt service. And we can see kind of where we're at if we keep our current rates where they are. And our estimated net taxable value, when we had a meeting with the CAD, they indicated right now that we're at $1,037,000,000 net taxable, $1,037,000. So bringing it down to about $1 billion, mainly because the numbers are so much easier when you do that. So if we're looking at $1 billion net taxable value, that kind of shows you where we're going to be at in this next year if we don't change anything. If the tax rate stays the same, so we would have 5.3, almost 5.4 million in the M&O fund for our operations, and then we'd have debt service. We'd only need it would fund 1.881, but actually for that year, for this next fiscal year 2019, the debt service would still be about 1.8 million. So, about 81,000 would be going into the M&O. Yes, sir.
Very quickly, just for my own clarification, when we
Okay.
talk about the estimate net taxable value, that's just a baseline that we're saying that there's about $1 billion worth of property taxable within the city of Socorro?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And actually, they came.
But isn't that a little high, you think?
It is a little bit higher, but they gave us a number of 1,037,000, and we're taking it down to $1 billion. Last year, it ended up about 965 million.
So that's what I'm saying, is that they're overestimating
Well,
the actual.
A good question, because what had happened is that they went and revalued everything.
Yeah.
And so they did caution us to say, coming down the pike, there's going to be all these adjustments for people that are going to say,
Which they haven't done in years.
they hadn't done it in quite some time.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Just in layman's terms, we're gonna lose about 2 to 3% of that whole amount that they're giving us. That's why, Mr. Casiano is saying that it's better to give it a big number.
No, and that's why I'm saying that.
Because there's people that are gonna fight it, because that's the whole issue that people were calling and saying, hey, why is Socorro raising tax? No, we're not, it's just the district appraisal. But you will lose no more than 3%, but I mean, just conservatively, that's what he's doing.
Plus, it's a nice round number.
Right, it's just that it just seems very, in terms of $1 billion of property.
Yes.
Taxable property in the area,
Yes.
in our area.
Yeah.
That seemed high, that's all I'm saying.
It seems high. Well, last year it was 960, based on the certified numbers, so.
Ms. Villalobos?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I know taxes went up. Trust me, I know. I got a couple of properties here in Socorro. They went up, my neighbors went up, other people that I know in Socorro called me, they went up. Do they take into consideration that our taxes next year, any of that portion,
Uh-huh.
did they take that into when did you guys have this meeting?
About a month ago, yeah. You know what, it's, the taxes did not go up. The property value,
Well,
the
I'm
property
sorry,
value went
The
up.
property value went up.
Yes.
Which means we're gonna pay more taxes.
That means that the bottom line went up.
Right.
But the tax rate hasn't changed
Not
yet.
the rate, but
Right.
that's what I'm saying. They're still gonna be able to collect, more funds
Yes.
next year because our value went. And mine
Yes.
went significantly, like $25,000.
Wow.
It went from
Okay.
one, to another, which is
Right.
a lot.
It is a lot, yes.
Correct.
So-
That's why we were saying that they came in and reevaluated. That's why it went up, and it seems like a very high number, because they hadn't done that in years. And now they came in and reevaluate all the properties. So that's why you got an increase on your taxes.
So that's already taken into consideration?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was my question.
Yes,
For our budget, correct?
yes.
But there's, like, if your neighbors were to contest it, that's what we're saying, that it could drop about 3%, because there's people that are contesting the value of their homes.
Right.
So we're being, on the conservative side, we're saying we're dropping it to $1 billion.
All right, now, if we go back, as we know, the maximum that we can increase the tax rate without going to a vote is the rollback rate. And so right under the current rates, down a little bit, it says rollback rate. And that is the rate of the last fiscal year's rollback, just as to use for an analysis. And that was about 4.5 cents would be the increase to go from there to that. And it's by statute, there's a certain percentage, that you can increase before you have to go to the citizenry and get a vote. And if we did that for this next fiscal year, you can see what the numbers would provide. Now, in that INS fund, I'm making an assumption, just so you know. Let's say we lose our minds and we decide we're going to go get $10 million in certificates of obligation because we're just going to do it and we're going to get things done and we're going to dig a big hole, in Thunder, on Thunder Road. If we did that, we're talking about $625,000 that we would have to finance through debt service, and that's added to the debt service number above, which would mean we would have to fund $2.445 million per year to pay off that debt. And if we had the rollback, you could see that we only lost about $104,000 to the M&O. So, that's just for your consideration for future debt. Yeah. So, because, the natural question is, what should we do going forward? Well, it looks like COs are probably our best bet at this point. How much on the COs is the big question, because if we get 10 million, that puts a little bit of strain, but that's kind of, to alleviate that strain, then we'd have to increase the tax rate, which I know is a very popular thing to do as a politician. You make lots of friends that way, so. But it's at the maximum point that you could do it without going to an election. Do you have any other questions, concerns?
Mayor? I wanted to add, the current TRZ that we have for Old Hueco Tanks Road, when it was created, I think it was back in 2013?
2011, I think,
11,
yes.
okay. It was to fund Old Hueco Tanks Road. The last administration, when that was done, nobody's in this current administration. I think they had the concept, but if you can see, we got COs to pay off the 20% match, which took a big hit on your COs 2014, and never used that TRZ correctly. So right now, me and Mr. Casiano had been talking about maybe dissolving that TRZ because it defeated the purpose
You never got our money's worth.
Correct. I mean, I think we have about $180,000,
I was gonna say 150, but. you-
150?
Yeah, maybe, let's,
He's more conservative. But, what I'm saying is that should have been used to get a loan at a very small interest rate and pay off of what you're getting every year from that TRZ, which that was never, there wasn't a different bank account. It wasn't set up the
We didn't
correct way.
leverage
I
it
think they
correctly.
had the concept, but they didn't understand it. It took us a while to kind of get the grasp of it. And now we're trying to see, TechStot is funding a TRZ analysis for the new arterial. And they're gonna tell us like how much money it would generate for us. And at that point, to fund that project, we could go out and get funds through the SIB at a very low interest rate to fund that actual project and not use your COs for that. Use your COs for other needs in the city. Okay. And that will probably bring to council in the near future to discuss the dissolving of the TRZ that we currently have.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Well, let's not jump to hoops real quick, because remember, we still need to advance the street all the way to Socorro Road. So we can still use those TRC money, really go out, we can go to either this one, or we can go to NatBank and ask for a loan so that we can connect the street all the way to Socorro, because that's what's planned. You know, so we don't necessarily have to dissolve it. Now, if you want to dissolve it and use the money and put it back into our general fund, that'd be, it's fine. But that's something that we have to also address, is that we don't want to be put in a predicament that we were placed in, because what happened to us is that they didn't understand the concept of what a TRZ was. Okay? They just thought, oh, we're just going to do an ordinance and say we're going to create a TRZ, and then that's it. They never understood what the purpose was for that. We should not put future councils in the same predicament that we were. I think that if we want to continue to do these projects, the TRZ's already there. We still have 2.5 miles on it that we can continue that road to hit Alameda and then further it from Alameda to Socorro. So abolishing it, we're gonna have to look at it and see what's best for the city's future. I don't think necessarily that, I mean, that's one thing we could do, abolish it, but it's one thing that if we're going to continue that road, the TRC's already there. We can just go and see how much money we can get with that money so that we can continue that project moving forward. So there's no sense in abolishing it at this moment, because that's something that we need to address, all of us, if we want to continue with that project. Therefore, after we do make a decision on whether we want to or not continue with that future project, then we'll talk about dissolving the TRZ. But those are great issues, because it will go back to our general fund. And we haven't raised taxes. Property valuations went up. So when we talk about that, we should be wary about saying, oh, we're gonna pay more taxes. No, you're paying more for your evaluation of your home. Because when we, as council, go out in public and say that, oh, we're paying more taxes, that makes the assumption that we, the city,
Are raising taxes.
are raising taxes. And we need to change that mentality, because I don't know about you guys, but I've had meetings here in admin just because of that, because people thought we were raising taxes. So I had to squash them. I said, hey, bring me all your documentation, and I had to go itemized and say, hey, look, you only see this big number, but you don't see this. And then I go and I say, this is our tax rate. Do you see this to that? Hasn't changed. So we need to be worried about what we say. And also, we need to be really, really thinking about what projects we want to do, because we don't have any money. $10,000 is $10 million is very steep. Like I'm saying, 625,000 will be added to our debt service. I mean, $10 million, I mean, we could do a lot of good things, like we did with $10 million, But if it's gonna tighten our budget, I mean, that's something that we need some space. I think a good thing is to see what projects we want, and then say, hey, you know what, we could do with this amount, not the whole amount, but some amount. You know, if we go back to the rollback tax, right now it's at 70.723533, whatever. That's what it is. Something like that, right?
It's right there.
Here, 0.773428.
Oh, you see? I was close. Anyways, so, you know, if we have to, we're gonna have to, you know, tell people, you know, that we probably will, maybe, I don't know. But it's something that we need to do. We still need to do projects. Remember, since 1985, nothing has been done since 2013. In 2013. So, I mean, that's a lot of stuff that we got fleets that are deteriorating. So, I mean, it's hard. It's hard, but, you know, we need to do something.
Ms. Villalobos?
Mr. Cassiano, just, if you know, I mean, it might be one of those questions that we probably don't have an answer for, or even close.
I'll make something up if you'd like.
If we were to just increase that rate,
Uh-huh.
you know, if we were to do that,
Yes.
what would be the impact for, I mean, are we talking about, you know, 5 cents per thousand, I mean, per hundred? What are we talking about here?
4.6 cents per hundred.
$100 value.
Yeah,
Which is
per hundred.
$35.
Yeah.
Per year?
Yeah, we looked at a $90,000 home
Yes.
would be increased like $46 a year.
Oh, we did the numbers for 3 cents. That's why. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
We did the numbers for 3 cents, not all the way to the rollback, but just 3 cents. It's gonna generate 200 and plus thousand for our general fund, which in turn will say it would give it about 33, 35, just to give it a good number on a 90,000 at 3 cents. And what we were discussing is that I tell everybody else, it's like, look, $35 at the end of the year isn't that much. Oh, no, it's because it's $35. Yes. But I know you drink it the weekend, and that's a 30-pack. You know? And just do that. And no, I know. And that's what I was saying. It's like people, we need to understand that, you know, you want us to do a bunch of services that, of course, we have to provide. But it costs money to provide these services. And like I tell everybody, you know, personally, is I have to do what's best. It might not be the best for you, but it might be the best for everybody else. So it just depends. You know, it's an evaluation, of course. You know, we really do have to think about it because we haven't done this. And it's knocking at our door.
Ms. Villalobos?
What is the highest that we can increase it at this time without having to go to the voters?
Well, that's what the rollback rate is. And that was last year's rollback rate. We haven't gotten the one for this year yet.
Okay,
So, but it should be comparable to that.
okay.
So, you know, we're looking at about 4.6 cents, the maximum. It's a percentage, and I can't remember the percentage. I don't know if you remember that. It's like 8% increase.
And now's the time to do it, or can we do it now, or we have to wait?
Well, we're going to have to analyze what the tax rate will be for this next fiscal year.
And those discussions we'll have at our budget meetings, and then you'll, as a council, you'll make a decision whether that's the
Well,
route you wanna
I'm
go.
just saying, once we make a decision and send it over, to the Central Appraisal District, to
Yes.
the county, or whoever,
Yes.
you know, do they have a time frame?
Do they have what?
A time frame for the,
Well,
It's like the same
it's in that budget timeframe. All that's kind of linked together. In order for us to do the budget, we have to set the tax rate, and then we build from there.
And there's several meetings that take place in order to meet that deadline.
okay, got it.
Yes.
Mr. Perez?
I would suggest that we go ahead and just go up to the allowable rate, whatever that will be eventually,
Right.
because we need individuals to get used to their new evaluated property. That, I mean, that, at least for me, I know that's, I need to get adjusted with my budget and be able to handle that. That's one. Two, I think that we're all on the right track already by identifying the streets that need the most repair. And then I think that we should start with the main ones. I mean, the more largely used arterials, because those are the ones that we get most dinged on. Well, I mean, the ones that have the most traffic are the ones that I know that I get the most complaints about. You know, and so if we can focus on those, I'm glad that I've been able to finally save face with some of my constituents in District 3 with Buford, because I bet that's the one that they would mostly ding me about, you know, when are you all gonna get it done? So we're close to that, but I know that there are other areas that need just as much work, so we can identify one major street in each area, and that's used. I think that'd be a good start. That's just me.
Okay.
So, where we spin, Randy.
Mr. Rodriguez?
I mean, this is the time to ask if you guys don't understand. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that you guys don't understand. I'm just saying, this is the time where we say, hey, what can we do? Because remember, these numbers will go up and down. All I'm saying is that we haven't raised taxes. And everybody complains that we do. County, remember, last year, everybody raised taxes. You know, so I mean, we're the only ones that don't, and we still get chewed. We still get dragged under the car because when somebody else raises taxes, oh, Socorro, City of Socorro did. And we always get blamed for it. You know, and frankly, it's like I say, you know what? If I'm gonna get blamed for something, then I'm gonna do it, basically. But we need to address the issue. The issue is we need funding. We need funding to continue to do and provide the services that we have to provide to our constituency. So, you know, this is something that is very difficult, and you know, if we should be thinking about just going all the way to the rollback rate. You know, also one of the things that I wanted to address as well is that since we're already tackling this, we should think about asking the voters to put 1 cent out of these 4 cents, so they could be locked, so that we could be used only for the EDC. That's something that we also should address.
Mr. Perez?
So at this point, what is the next step? Because I mean, we have the proposed amounts based on the best data that we have available until we actually get it from Central Appraisal District, whatever the taxing entities are. So then, in terms of what we do now, are you all going to present proposed areas that need to be addressed with this funding, or, because I think just the conversations now, it seems like we want to go up to the amount, just the rollback, without going to the voters. I think that's pretty much established. So then what's next?
Okay, I think the approach is that this spreadsheet is kind of telling you have no more COs, right? So any other project that comes in, we're gonna have to use our general fund. That's why we're talking about other funding options, another CO. Once you determine what route you're gonna go, then we can come up with a capital improvement plan, right? Vehicles, the 2.4 million dollar streets that we need to pave, the onion field excavation. We can talk about those big projects that we can do a plan and say, let's get it done. I think the beauty of this 2014 is that when I came in, we still had funds from CO from 2001 for the Rio Vista, meaning that we weren't using our funds. The city wasn't getting what we've already went to, ask for money for. Now, I mean, we are 2018, going into 2019, and we've already spent most of them, meaning that these projects are getting done. Okay, so I think for council, it's determining, do we stop everything right now until we go for COs? Because when we come through budget, we're only gonna allocate $200,000 for, paving. That's not gonna take you very far. You're gonna be able to do small streets. You're not gonna make an impact. And that's just because we have to be conservative, because you don't wanna run out of that general fund that you already have.
Depleted, right.
Mr. Rodriguez?
So, what I understood, just in layman's terms, is just that we're gonna do the budget, you're basically saying, we ain't gonna be able to come up and bring something in the agenda item to add to our budget because we don't have the funds for it.
Correct.
It's just that simple.
Yes.
Just that simple, you know, so we,
And just so you can understand, like for street
no, I
maintenance.
understand. I
Yes,
understand. That's
but,
what I'm saying.
Okay,
Just in layman's terms, that's what it is. So we have to really do the budget, then we have to decide what projects we want to do. Then we'll see what funding sources, if we go to the Nat Bank or the SIB, or we go for COs, or maybe we can do all three to do our projects that we want. But if we do that, we have to do our due diligence and set a little bit of money just in case somebody has something on the side. Because that's what hurts our budget. That's what hurts our capital improvement project list. We keep adding and adding and adding, and that's what's hurting us. So we have to do our homework, say what we're going to plan to do as a council, what projects we want to do as council, and stick to it. Because adding to it is gonna, some projects that we're adding to this list and we keep adding on the side, some ones that we as council decided to, we're not gonna be able to be doing. And that's what we're facing right now. So that's why I said in layman's terms, we can't be doing that. We have to, really tighten our belt.
Mr. Perez?
Mr. Castillo, I have two questions, and Adriana, maybe you can also answer. With the COs, can we leverage those to obtain funding like through the SIB?
Well, the SIB is a bank. We could just go straight to them to get a loan. And the beauty of that situation is that they're not going to have us on a set debt payment schedule. Whatever we get in through the TRZ, we pay them on that loan.
Okay, because my thing is that if we want to fund projects, then and not being too familiar with any of the funding mechanisms that you've proposed or that you presented, that sometimes they require that we put up a match or that we do this or that financially or monetarily.
Right.
And so if we can offset some of those costs through the use of COs, not expand all the COs, and use that as leverage. That way we dwindle the amounts of the COs as slowly as possible and yet take advantage of whatever rates we can from the SIB.
Right, but
again, not knowing how.
The thing with the State Infrastructure Bank is very specific on what they
what
will
it can be used
cover.
for.
and
And
it's for improvements for that TRC that you established.
But we can create multiple TRZs.
Correct.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. In fact, our favorite city, Terrell, is like covered in TRZs.
So then,
Yeah.
so then,
No, it is.
so then, why can't we go ahead and, for example, there are areas still off of North Loop that need to be fixed. There are areas, all areas that need to be fixed. But if we can identify some of the larger roads, and if there are businesses there that we can,
Just don't vacant land on TRZs.
it's just vacant land.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Rodriguez?
There's another thing that you guys would want to consider. We can also put aside a cent or 2 cents of our tax rate, and we can use that and say at a 10-year, 20-year, and then we can go out and see how much money we can generate from it. As far as, going out and levy it so that we can go and say, hey, we can go get a loan for, $5 million. How much of a cent of our tax rate would it be? Those are things that we can also do.
But that requires voter approval. No?
Yes, but we could do it in-house, or we could take it to the voters. One of the things that I was saying about the voters was that we could go to the voter and say, we want to dedicate 1 cent or 2 cents for the EDC. That means that nobody can touch. That is just gonna be for that. Because if we do it, we can just easily do it ourselves. But if another council comes in and decides to use that money they don't have to use it for the purpose that we did it. That's the purpose of
Voter
going to
mandated.
the voter mandate, that you can't touch it, you know? And that's something that, you know, a lot of cities have done. Horizon 2, you know, so those are things that we have to look at, because we have to fund these so that we can entice, you know, companies, because we want those to pick up the burden of our tax base. I mean, those are just things that, you know, that they're gonna be out there. I'm gonna have a meeting. They're gonna let me know today, sometime next week. So I'll let you know, Mayor, so that we can discuss stuff like that. It's gonna be important, because it's something that we need to, if we don't do it, that we have a little bit of knowledge, a little bit. We don't know it all, but that's what we wanna know. We wanna know what can and can't we do, because we, or at least I, don't want to put future council in a predicament that we were put, like on this TRZ. So,
Mr. Perez?
No, I just want to ask you, Madam Mayor, so then what is the end result of this meeting then today?
I think this is just information to prepare ahead for budget time so
Okay.
that we can prioritize our projects and consider where our funding's gonna come from. So that's the ultimate goal here.
Okay. So
We do have another capital workshop on June 9th, and then at that point, we can, you know, you can direct staff what route you decide, you all decide,
Okay.
so.
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
if you guys don't want it on Saturday because it's too early, we can change it.
No, actually, this works better.
We're not rushed.
Oh, okay, I'm just saying.
Just as long as you have coffee, that's,
Sorry, guys.
Could I just make two more points?
Of course.
yes.
Mayor? First of all, I want to argue with Mr. Rodriguez about the TRZ. You know, you have the yin and the yang with the TRZ, is that as area develops, you're having all this lovely tax money going to pay off debt. And yet you have operations that need to take place in those areas for which you're not getting adequate funding in some cases. And that's the yin and the yang, is that it's coming out of our M&O, it's coming out of our operations to pay this debt. So it's, you know, the thing is, you know, from that standpoint, I feel like the funding that was asked for on that TRZ, that is Nuevo Hueco Tanks Road, is taken care of. We don't need it anymore. And the other thing the other point that I wanted to make is that when we had this meeting, they were actually more excited about Socorro than we were. From the standpoint, there's a lot of development, there's a lot of growth happening, and they see it in a kind of in a different manner. In that here, this used to be agricultural land, now it's development. That's already increased in value. Once the developer puts some stuff on there, that's an increase in value. We are poised for some really nice growth in the next 5 years. And so, you know, from that standpoint, I think we should be, you know, excited and you know, ready to act.
And just adding on to Mr. Casiano, the TRZ means when you create it, it freezes the taxes, right? So whatever you generate after that just goes to this TRZ. So what he's saying is with all this new development like East Lake Valley, and you know that once it opens, that area is gonna develop, well, you're not really taking advantage of that because you have it frozen into just that road. In other words, we can put all that money into our maintenance and operations and get more done.
I'm sorry, I was just being flippant about the fact that whenever that opens, I don't know when, but
Ms. Villalobos?
So your suggestion is to maximize the use should be that we should consider,
Dissolving the TRZ and let it go.
it does more good than it does,
Well, right now, it serves no purpose,
okay.
you know? And let's say in the next 5 years, it goes crazy, it develops, and then all that money is there to pay debt that doesn't exist.
Also, what we can do later is you dissolve that one, and then after the 5-10 years, right, because they're talking about expanding it all the way to Socorro Road. You can create another TRZ and then freeze them there. take full advantage of what you're,
About to
um,
start accumulating.
yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And
But just one more question.
Mr. Perez?
So then, just for my own benefit, then,
Uh-huh.
so, in terms of a TRZ, and maybe we're belaboring the point, but as far as the TRZ is concerned, we're not getting a benefit out of it because it's to repay debt. And once the area has been developed, that debt will take care of itself through the development of
Right.
the area?
right,
So-
as the properties
Right.
increase, you know,
So then.
the
so
revenue will
then-
increase.
Because the debt, well, okay, so we paid
Right.
almost $1.3 million for Oweco Tanks Road.
Right.
The past administration used COs
Mhm.
for that, which we could have used through the SIB, right? But we used our, capital improvement for that purpose. So we've already met that purpose, right, for this one that's already been built. Yes, I know that in the future, but we're talking about 10, 15 years from now. At that point, after 5 years, because you know that this street is gonna bring in a lot of revenue,
Right.
commercial, residential, I mean, we've already seen it. You wanna take advantage of that and be able to put that into your maintenance and operations. As we have it now, we should not be using anything that comes out of that 2011 till now, we can't use that for maintenance and operations. That has to be set aside.
Under the TMZ or the TRZ? No?
No, for that road.
Well, that's
Like-
what I'm saying. I guess that's where and I
Correct,
apologize.
so you're putting it aside, but right now, you can't, it's not
Right.
like if you used it as collateral, right? The TRZs are morely used like for collateral and telling the bank, I have this new development
Right.
and this is what we're gonna pay
See,
you
and
with
I
debt back.
guess that's
Right
what-
now, you didn't use that TRZ for that purpose. You
Right.
just took out COs,
So then that.
not needing
well,
a TRZ.
That TRZ is, builds a nest egg, so to speak.
Well, it doesn't even build an estate, it is the leverage to get financing.
For
At
other
a very
Collateral.
low
Yes.
interest rate.
So, the TRZ, in fact, one of our TRZs went negative. And so nothing, was set
So
aside.
then, one last question, I promise.
No, this
So
is
then-
good.
So the TRZ, because of the way it's structured,
Right.
whatever tax dollars are generated from there
Uh-huh.
have to be set aside for future TRZs or.
It's just set aside.
Yes,
Let's say
sir.
it's set aside, and the only thing that we can do with that is
Is pay out.
either pay directly
Right.
for construction or pay off debt for that construction.
And at this point, we've
Well, you've already used your COs for that.
Okay.
Right.
Ah.
So that's why I'm saying,
I'm
like,
sorry,
they
it's just
had
the
the
thing hasn't
concept,
kicked
but
in.
it wasn't understood that that's what they were gonna do, because what should have happened was, yes, they could have still gone out for COs, the 9 million, but then they should have said the 1.2 or 1.3 million dollars, we could take out a loan and pay off of, with what we're getting from the TRZ,
Right,
and you would have had 1.3 million dollars to use
so it wasn't
for
leveraged.
something else.
And just as a point of information is that once the TRZ is done, its purpose is over, any money that's in there goes back to the general fund. We never lose it,
Okay.
so it comes back to us.
Okay. I get you. All right.
Mr. Rodriguez?
But we have to do our homework.
Yeah.
And I understand their point of view.
Mhm.
But we also have to understand that we direct staff. We say what we want and what are the goals for our future. Okay? What we fail to say is that we get a tax of it. We're just saying that whatever it generates after that, that's what we can't get a hold of. We still get taxes. Okay? Whether they do it right or wrong, I'm not talking about our staff. We're talking about back then. That ain't gonna happen to us. Because you guys know me. I'll come and I'll say what it is. So we need to understand. And before we start doing and tearing up these TRZs, we just want to know, at least I want a peace of mind. That's all I want to do. I want a peace of mind because I don't want to tear up something and then go back. And how long is it going to generate $150,000 to pay for a future road of construction when the space that we're looking in the future is smaller, about 1/4 of what this street is? How long would it take the city to do that? If we don't start now, when are we going to start? When are we going to lay the foundation for future councils? Those are things that we have to address. Those are things that we have to do our homework and really say, yes, we're gonna undo it, or we're gonna keep it. That's all I'm saying. I agree, because we need funding in our general fund. I've said that. All I'm saying is, look at all our options, all of them. What is it that we, the city, wants to do, okay? Because, like I said, I want projects, just like Mr. Duran, our mayor, Ms. Villalobos, you, Mr. Perez, we all want, Mr. Nevares wants. But you know what? It's not about what we want, it's what we need. And our needs come first before our wants. But we need to know what our needs are and how we're going to fulfill those needs. We have to look at every single avenue. If we are going to extend that street, then we need to look at whether it would be beneficial for us or not. You know what, for all we know, when it comes down to it and we find out that we don't need it, abolish it. We'll have that 150 extra thousand. But it's just that on this budget. Doesn't mean that we're gonna add it on every year. It just means that we're gonna add a little bit for this year. All I'm saying is we need to look at every single avenue, because that's what we need. City of Socorro has never done this before. You know, that's why it's very important to go with Mr. Hurd, you know, our congressman. You know, these are things that we have to address. We have to look at every single source funds that could be available to us. You know, I'm tired that people have this misconception that we always raise taxes. But unfortunately, you know what? When we do, it's because we're gonna do the right thing for our constituents. You know, that's one of the things that I'll say. I love it because I talk to our CFO all the time, right?
He's a pest.
You know, because I want to know what can and can't we do. You know, it's not that, you know, I'm a mean guy. It's just that, you know, maybe I'm a big guy, but you know, I do want to understand the numbers. I understand the numbers. I understand the needs. I know what can and can't be done. I just want to reassure myself that what we're trying to do is the best for the city. You know, I don't want to say that and be negative, and I'm not trying to fight with Mr. Casiano about
It's okay.
the TRZ. You know, no, I'm just saying he's got a good, valid point that I agree. That's what I haven't said, is that I agree we should abolish it. I just want to know if we want to look in the future to expand the street, stuff like that. I'm just trying to give you both sides. That's all I'm doing. So that we can really say, oh, we could do this, we could do that. That's it.
Mr. Duran?
Mr. Casiano,
Uh-huh.
could you are our CFO.
Well, actually, I'm the finance director.
You are a finance
The
director.
CFO stands for Chief Financial
Financial
Officer. I'm not an
Okay.
officer.
You
That's a
are
bad
our,
word.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Let's go with you are our official bean counter.
Okay, I like
Let's
that.
go that route.
It's better than book juggler. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, we don't. I think we've had that. Let's leave that one alone. Let's give us the pros and cons of dissolving the TRZ.
Well,
Give us the pros of keeping it,
Uh-huh.
and give us the pros of dissolving it.
The
and
pros
the cons.
of keeping it is developing a nest egg, but and you're gonna have funds, especially in the next, let's say 3 or 4 years. Let's say a miracle happens and Nuevo Hueco Tanks Road actually opens, and and we have the development, because it calls for both commercial and residential, you know, going in over there, and we just have a boom, you know. El Paso's kind of running out of suburbs, and you know that's something we could tap into, and we have all this money in this TRZ, but then on the other hand, what are we going to use it for? You know, whereas if we had dissolved it, it goes straight into our general fund. We use it as we get it, and you know, when you have a new development, you probably would have 2 or 3 years, Miguel, where you don't have to do all that much. And that 4th and the 5th year, it's like a car, you know, you got to start doing stuff to it. And so that's when we're going to need to say, we may need to increase our parks, we may need to increase our police force, those kind of things that where if it's in the TRZ waiting to pay off debt that we don't know what we're going to do with it, I think we'd be better off using that to fund, you know, in anticipation, you know, that we need more police, that we need more public work people, that we may need, you know, more infrastructure, more administration even, you know, just different things like that. That's my yin and yang on that one.
Ms. Villalobos?
I would love if you can,
Uh-huh.
and this would help me tremendously, and I'm sure it'll help all of us up here. Between now and then, if you can find any animated videos or even do
Well, we
one
could have
yours-
Victor just do one, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, videos where it talks about the pros and the cons, but you actually have, you know, images or whatnot to help us understand this better. I'm trying to grasp everything. I
Uh-huh.
think I have a pretty good idea,
Mhm.
you know, better than when I walked in. But sometimes, you know, we're only
Mhm.
looking at the surface and we're not
Right.
looking deep. And I'd like to
Well,
make sure that we do the right
You know, we
thing.
had a meeting with Dr. something or other with Texas A&M, and he had a little slide presentation.
Mhm.
It wasn't animated, but we could
Well,
like move it a lot,
just
you know.
saying. Just something that would help tremendously.
Mhm.
If you can think of any ideas of other cities that have done it and how well it went for them,
Uh-huh.
that would even be another idea. I mean, I know I'm adding work and I'm gonna try to do my part to see if I can find anything on
Okay.
online, you know, to help me better understand before we actually make a decision. But if you can find anything, good literature that we can sit down and really, you know, just soak it up before we make a decision.
We
Okay.
can actually bring TTI to provide a presentation for you all.
Yeah.
They're the ones that do the studies on the TRZ and create them.
Yeah, and they'll explain how it gets paid back and how it works, so.
Mr. Perez?
This is the way I see it, because I can always simplify it to what, like, my house, our houses are usually our biggest investment that we have a debt. So then if you have, and so let's just say that you have, over the years, you've been accumulating, putting away, stashing away money, right? And savings, and maybe it's through a, I don't know, an IRA, individual retirement account. If you take out the money from an IRA, they're going to tax you, they're going to penalize you. But if you have enough in that IRA to pay off your house, I think that it would be best, this is just me, and I'm equating the nest egg as the TRZ. I want to say TMZ, like the store,
Right.
the TRZ.
We know
You
I
watch too many
apologize.
E-News.
Yeah, I know. You know where I spend my time. No. So then you pay off. You have all this stuff, this money set aside, but you're still paying taxes and your property, and you're still paying your debt on your house. I'd rather, if I'm able to move that money and pay off the house, and I can always pay off that debt, the penalties off of the IRA over a long term, and get out of it knowing that I don't have the whatever amount of taxes I have on my house. So and the actual payment. So then it's actually using your money to get it to
Maximize it. Maximize it for
and
something else.
whether and I know it may not be a one-to-one example, but that's how I see it. That the TRZ creates this savings for us, a nest egg, if you will.
Mhm.
But the thing is that we can't do anything with it until, so then if by dissolving the TRZ, then we can use that nest egg to pay for the needs that the city has, like maybe police cars, stuff that can come out of the general fund. That's my understanding. Maybe very simplistic, maybe not correct.
I see question marks all over
Well,
your forehead.
You know, it's just that, you know, until you're 59 and a half, you can't take money out of the IRA without a penalty, you know. And so let me change your analogy into just a savings account.
Okay.
Because in that savings account, you know, you can borrow like 3 times what your savings is, you know, especially if you have good credit.
Okay.
You know, and so let's say, you know, let's say Socorro has excellent credit. And we don't need to have that much set aside, especially when we go to the bank, the state infrastructure bank, and say, we've got this beautiful TRZ. It's got 2 miles on either side of this future arterial. All that's going to accumulate over the years. We don't have to have a dime yet to secure that funding based on just the promise of what we're going to do in the future. You know, and so we don't really need a nest egg, but we need to have a good understanding of what the TRZ is for.
Okay.
You know, and it's not for other things. It's for that roadway. And you know, the total cost of the roadway is ridiculous. You know, we can't afford it. But that's why we're, you know, partnering with all these other entities, and so that our portion, and let's say we get a bill somewhere down the road, 1.3 million for our portion. Well, we just get a loan for that, and that loan gets paid back by any TRZ money coming down the pike. And let's say in 3 years we paid it off, and we still have $250,000 in there. It's ours. We just put it back in the general fund and move on.
So
All right.
just to add to that, the county levied 1 cent, 1, 2, 3, 3 cents. But the difference is that when they levy 1 cent, it's $3.2 million. Okay, to our $98,000. What I'm trying to get at is the county levied those cents, went and said, okay, we're gonna levy, say, 2 cents. It was $6 million. So they went to NatBank or the SIB, and they said, how much money can I borrow with $6 million? Well, they came and borrowed like $45 million. So they went, put that cent against a promissory note that they were gonna levy the 2 cents so that they can get $45 million so that they can do all these projects. It's the same thing, it's basically the same thing
A smaller scale.
as the TRZs, but we can also do it with our cents, and that's one of the things that we were trying to look at. There's more things to it than just, I mean, we could be here all day long discussing ways and methods of getting revenues. You know, and frankly, you know, it's a lot to absorb. But those are things that we need to look at as well. But just like I said, you know, I just play devil's advocate. I just throw things at you because I want you to understand. Look at the good, look at the bad. What is it for? What is it not for? You know, just things like that. I mean, like I said, we need money in our general fund. You know, like I said, if we are not going to expand the street, then we do not need the TRZ. Okay? That's basically what I'm trying to get at. I'm not telling you, oh, let's not do it. I'm just saying, you know, there's a need for it, but if we're not going to do it, then why do we need it? It's just simple.
If Mr. Rodriguez is going to agree with me, I'm gonna have to rethink my position.
Ms. Villalobos?
And I forgot what I was gonna ask you something.
I do have a question.
Go ahead,
Mr. Perez?
I'll come back.
So then, and I know it's somewhere in here, but just so I can hear it, how much is left of our COs? Or are
Nada.
we done?
You're,
We are done.
you're in the negative. I mean, you have money there, but it's already allocated, like for
Okay,
your
so it's already
library. Yes.
Okay,
You already have the library, the Rio Vista rehabilitation. We have the paving of Buford,
okay.
and pretty much
So we're done for 17, 18.
correct.
1920 this far.
I mean, for now,
Well,
you're
but I
you're
mean,
done
as far
for
as
COs.
As far as this fiscal
Oh,
year
yeah.
is
For
concerned,
COs,
we're
you're
done.
done, and then this spreadsheet will tell you exactly what we did
Right.
with those funds.
So then now for 18, 19,
We can start fresh.
we can start, well, yeah.
Correct. At that point, you make a decision, what is it that we're gonna do in order to fund other projects that are coming in?
So then what's on the table now are COs, or do we wanna pursue COs for 18, 19?
Correct.
Yes.
And how much?
And how much? And this is the number,
Yeah.
10 million, it'll cost us 655, would add
Mhm.
to our debt service. Do we really wanna do that? That's, it just depends on what projects we wanna do.
Right.
That's why we need to do another capital improvement, Mayor,
June 9th?
and then from there, we'll go and say what projects are needed, and then we'll go and see about the funding.
So can we ask staff to go ahead and, for next meeting, have because, and I know we've seen this be, but just so we can actually dissect it, the projects that are anticipated.
That are
for-
needed.
That are needed for 18, 19, so that we can, and even then, we're gonna have to filter those down.
Right.
And just say, this is it. And then have a cushion for any incidentals, that emergencies, or maybe a street that we missed in any area, but it absolutely needs to get fixed.
For those type of projects, would you like for us to present like a fleet, right? Because we're in need of some vehicles. Or do you want to just us to present in the budget, not through capital, setting aside some funds to purchase vehicles every
Well, I
year?
think that, and you all probably already have, but I think this is a good time to start having a vehicle replacement program. So that, and have that plan in place so that we can go ahead and see where we're at, whether we can do it through a CO or through general fund. I think the best bet is to use the general fund, because it's not, you're gonna buy, it's like buying a car, and you're gonna be paying it for 20 years, and that car is no longer going to be
Exactly.
serviceable.
So I,
Yes.
So
So there's
yeah,
no need to use COs.
So I'd rather take that out
Yes.
of the general fund, and so at that point, have a vehicle replacement program or plan in place through general funds, so that we can free up the COs for other major
Could
projects.
and I
we-
mean, PD is using the asset forfeiture
Forfeitures?
funds to purchase vehicles.
And we
They
can
are.
take an average of
They
that.
have, no.
Well, we budgeted 166,000 for
For those.
vehicles
Mhm.
for
Last
PD,
year.
and with the current budget that we're in right
So
now.
was that just for maintenance or actual
No,
replacement?
Actually
actual
purchasing, I think it was five.
So then you already have something in place.
Some,
then.
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
already coming in, but I mean, every
But
year, it's like, now
that-
we're gonna have to look into
Yeah.
Public Works, because we have one mechanic with one assistant servicing all fleet plus your heavy machinery. So we're taking a hit
What?
there. I mean, and those are discussions that will take place at budget time, to relieve that.
But I guess that's what that's what I'd like to see, is the list of the projects that are needed, and then, so we can whittle those down, and then also just have a contingency for the ones that come up,
I agree.
and then just, as they say in Spanish, apretarnos el cinto, and
What-
that's it.
One of the things we could add is give us all of the make and models of all our fleet of the police department. Then what we can do is that we can, we can auction out the oldest, say we're gonna replace 3 fleets, saying we decide to do
Which
3
parts?
fleets every year. Just to say that,
3 vehicles.
3 vehicles, right, on our fleet. So we'll take the 3 oldest, we'll auction them out when we replace with the new ones. I think that would be pretty good, so that our fleet can constantly be new
Or as soon
and,
as possible.
and as soon as possible. And that'll save us on maintenance, operation cost as well.
Ms. Villalobos?
2 things. One, Mr. Casiano, there's 4 different programs that you presented here for the debt. Is there anything else out there besides, I would assume there's a lot more out there that we can utilize to help us.
Yeah,
Kinda like-
there probably is, but these scenarios are gonna keep us,
Solvent.
probably paying the least amount of interest, because that, interest expense is a bad word.
I see.
you know, and we want to minimize that as much as possible and maximize what we can get for it, so.
And the other thing, didn't we go with a lease for the vehicles? For the,
We looked at.
No, the attorney, we couldn't come up with a,
Mhm.
because of the procurement process. Like, I mean,
I
that
thought
was
we had
something
come up
that,
with a lease, and
No.
so I was very happy because we could.
No, it was.
No, it was presented to us, we agreed to look into it, and then at the end of the day, it's not feasible.
It was the previous chief that came up with
Yes.
that.
Yes.
It
Right.
was
Yes,
like
And,
a spec for a police interceptor.
It would be
and then-
paid out of the citations
Yeah,
of
yeah.
that particular
Right.
vehicle, right?
correct, but then we started, receiving complaints where our citations continued and officers started saying they had a quota and that's illegal. You can't.
So the perception was that we were.
Mhm.
Correct, that we
Yes.
were citing people to pay for our own vehicles, and that's actually, I mean, it created a lot of fuss, and we just, and I think the attorneys didn't come back with a
Favorable.
yeah.
favorable agreement, that
But-
we couldn't.
Getting back to the lease was not, I mean, aside from, paying with the citation.
Well,
The
and
lease
that
portion.
that particular lease was different. That was just a quirky thing, you know, he talked to some people that he knew. But leasing in general is something I think we need to revisit, because when vehicle leases first came out, it was all one-sided. You know, the lease company was protected, and you had to pay them everything and make sure everything was insured, that kind of thing. Well, you know, that language has changed over the years, and it may be that we can find a lease agreement where it's much more favorable than even to purchase. And that way, you know, we're leasing vehicles, and you know, when they wear out, we don't have to go buy a new one. We just extend the lease or get a different vehicle into that lease.
Because, yeah.
But I know that we're going to run to the issue of mileage.
Yeah. Well,
okay?
and
You know,
that was
no,
the
no, and
first
we can
thing I
find- And
heard.
if we can find something that's favorable, hey, we might look at that too as well. I'm just saying stuff like that. I know that I can, instead of buying my trucks or my vehicles through my company, I can lease them, you know. But it goes back to the same thing.
Well,
I'm capped at mileage.
well, let me just give you a perfect example. For 35 years, the company my husband worked for,
Mhm.
they bought their own trucks.
Right.
After 4 or 5 years, because they used them all day long, every day, we're talking about 18-wheelers. After 4 years, 5 years, the maintenance became ridiculous. So they decided, even though it looked like on paper, it looked like it would cost a lot more to lease, eventually, when at the end of the year, when they did their whatever, they came back, their analysis, they came back and said, you know what, with all the maintenance that we've been paying and the time that the truck was down because we could not find, a reputable company, because, these leases come with mechanics.
Yes.
So that's another thing that it just, and the write-off for it was phenomenal. So I'm just saying that maybe we should really look at all those 3 aspects.
Right.
Mr. Duran?
So I think we already know that our streets are gonna run us over $2 million. So we already know that for the worst streets, correct? So if you because we can sit here talking about this all day long, but we really don't know what else the city absolutely has to have. So I think at our next meeting, I think it'd be easier for staff to bring us those numbers of the projects that seem more pressing than to sit here and talk about leases. Let's go ahead and just have staff bring us a list of what we absolutely have to have. Then we can decide whether a CO would be the way to go,
Right.
or we can look at all of the other funding options.
Right.
Because right now, we only know about $2 million, a little over $2 million for streets. We don't know about anything else. I mean, we all have ideas,
Right.
but they're not on paper. So we can look at, I think it'd be best to just have staff bring us those numbers at our next meeting. We can look at them and make a more informed decision on how we're gonna fund them, rather than looking at all these funding options, but we don't really know how much money we're gonna borrow.
Any other questions, comments? No? We don't need a motion, right?
No.
Okay. Moving on to the addendum, item number 4, discussion and action regarding change order for Skyridge Construction LLC for the Rio Vista roofs for the parapet repairs of buildings 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. Mr. Rodriguez?
I didn't see your addendum, so I just got a glimpse of it, just saying. But if it's under $50,000, why are we bringing it up? Because if it hits $50,000, it shouldn't come up to us.
It's a change order. For the roofs, we did Skyridge as the contractor, right, to do the roofs. We then found out that the adobe from the building needed to be fixed. Okay, so that's, and we went out and received quotes. The person that we were working with, we awarded the contract, what was the name of that company?
It was Monster Commercial Construction. They had a problem obtaining the insurance paperwork. They were going back and forth with their attorneys, and they didn't have workman's comp insurance that was required by state law, and so they're unable to continue with the project.
Okay, so in the state of Texas, you're not required to have workers' comp. However, for any public entity, you are required to.
You do.
Okay, so we couldn't come to an agreement, and then Skyridge said,
That they could do the actual work, however, since we already had a contract in place with a set amount, this would come with a change order. So
So it would
change
be-
orders get brought before council for their approval.
Okay, but still, it's still less than $50,000.
correct,
It's a
wi-
change order.
just the change order, okay? But you
Oh, no.
you have a project that was awarded through a bid procurement process. So now that would be a change order.
Oh, okay, okay. I got
However,
it.
So
Um,
had this been just a start of a project
Right.
under 50, they
I-
could have initiated.
I thought it was a
Correct.
new,
What has surfaced from this is that Monster Inc. will get the workers' comp, right? But at that point, when we placed the agenda item, you know, he was under like, well, how are you gonna make me do this? Well, he understood he needs it in order to have any kind of type of our business.
okay.
So what I'm asking council is to authorize us to use either, depending on who gives us the best deal, to move forward. But the only reason that this one had to come to council is because it is a change order.
Okay, that's what I didn't, I thought it was just new, that's why
Correct?
anything under $50,000 shouldn't come to us.
And it is time sensitive because we do have insurance funds
No
that
problem.
need to be used.
And I do want to make, just to note, any contract will go before you even if it's under 50, because we're just not allowed to sign the contract.
Okay. But you could award it though, at less than 50,000.
But she canceled
Correct,
the
I mean,
contract.
Okay.
anything that's under 50, and there's agreements that we've signed
Yeah.
Yeah.
in order,
Okay.
under
No, no,
$50,000.
I thought it was different. And like I stated before, I
There's no
didn't
need-
see
yes.
it. I just barely saw it. I just glimpsed at it. That's okay.
So at this point, Madam Mayor, may I make a motion to approve the change order for Skyridge Construction LLC?
Second.
Do we have
Correct,
a
and,
motion?
okay, so
Either-
we already have approval for Monster. Okay, we have approval on the table from past meetings, so I don't want to cancel that,
Okay, so
right, the approval, and then you're approving this one. So I think we could do either, correct? They don't have to put it
So
as
then what
part
would
of the
be the
motion 'cause we
appropriate
have an
motion?
agenda item.
I resent my motion. I mean, my.
You're asking
Second.
for the change order.
In case we use them,
Correct. As
in
an
case we use
alternative
them, yes.
to the other one. That's
But
already
they
been
don't have
approved.
to, but they don't have to change it to or Monster Inc. as previously approved
Yeah, I think that should be clear.
in the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, so the motion would be to approve
Okay,
Skyridge change order or Monster Inc., which has previously been approved, depending
Okay.
on what's the best.
so-
That should be part of your motion.
all right, so then let me see if I'm correct. I'd like to rescind my previous motion and make a motion to approve the change order for Skyridge Construction LLC or to use Monster Inc. If
As
they are able to obtain whatever necessary provisions
As previously,
per the state order.
yes.
Second.
Yes, was that Master Memos?
Sí.
Second.
Yeah,
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Do we have a motion for consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second. Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Would somebody entertain a motion to delete item number 7, item number 8?
Motion to delete item number 7 and item number 8.
Second.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. But this is, I mean, even though we're not, we have some clear direction as to what we want, this was not a waste of time. I don't think.
Oh, no, no.
No, this was something that we needed to get started on. So, all right, thank you.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.